Across rural America, there are hundreds of old school buildings, places where generations of children once learned, grew up, and built the foundations of their lives. Most of these buildings quietly fade into history when their doors close for the final time. But in a small community of Farrar, Iowa, one school building has developed a very different reputation. Visitors claim to hear footsteps in empty hallways, voices echoing through classrooms, and the unsettling feeling that they are not alone. Tonight we're exploring the story of Farrar Elementary School, a small rural school that has become one of the most talked about paranormal locations in the American Midwest. But like many places associated with hauntings, the real story begins long before the ghost stories. Please note, our episodes are best experienced with headphones. Welcome to the Beyond Haunted UK podcast. Before we begin, if you enjoy these stories, please follow Beyond Haunted UK on all available podcast providers and across social media. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, over 70% of you aren't currently following, and your support generally helps the podcast grow. This episode may contain themes of mental illness, trauma, human suffering, or details relating to true crime. Please listen with care. My name is Jamie, and this is Beyond Haunted UK, where we explore history, belief, true crime, and the unexplained through the lens of the human experience. Again, I ask you to please listen with an open mind. To understand the story of Farrar Elementary School, we first need to understand the place where it stands. Farrar is a small rural community in Polk County, Iowa. Like many farming communities in the early 20th century, life revolved around agriculture, family, and close-knit neighbourhoods. Schools in places like Farrar were not just educational buildings, they were the centre of community life. Events were held there, meetings took place there, and generations of children passed through the same classrooms. The building itself was constructed in 1921. At the time, it represented something important for the town: education, opportunity, a place where the next generation could learn and grow. The two-storey brick building stood prominently within the rural landscape. Inside its classrooms, students learned reading, mathematics, science, and history. For nearly 80 years, the building served exactly the purpose it was designed for: a place of learning, a place where childhood unfolded in ordinary ways. For the people who attended Farrar School, it was simply their local school. Children arrived each morning, teachers guided lessons, and friendships formed in classrooms and on playgrounds. The building held the small moments that make up childhood: first days of school, school performances, recess with friends. These everyday memories are what give places emotional meaning. But over time, the rural landscape of America began to change. Population patterns shifted. Small communities became smaller still. School districts began consolidating local schools into larger regional facilities. Eventually, in 2001, Farrar Elementary School closed its doors. Students were transferred elsewhere. Teachers moved on, and the building that had served the community for decades fell silent. When buildings designed for daily life suddenly become empty, something changes. Schools carry emotional weight. They represent childhood, routine, structure, and when they stand empty, they often feel strangely frozen in time. Desks remain where they were left. Hallways echo differently, and silence begins to fill spaces that were once alive with voices. It is often during this quiet period that stories begin to grow. Not long after the school closed, people began reporting strange experiences inside the building. Visitors described hearing footsteps in empty corridors, doors moving on their own, and voices echoing through classrooms. Some investigators claimed to hear what sounded like children laughing, even though no one was present. Others reported shadowy figures seen moving along the upper floor. Over time, the building developed a reputation as a paranormal hotspot. One of the most frequently repeated stories connected to the school involves a former janitor. According to a local legend, a janitor who once worked at the school died inside the building. Some versions of the story claim he died in the boiler room. Others suggest he may have taken his own life somewhere on the property. But historical documentation supporting the story is unclear. Like many paranormal legends, the narrative appears to have grown through local storytelling. Yet many investigators claim to experience unusual activity near the lower end of the building. Over the years, Farrar School has attracted paranormal investigators from across the United States. Teams arrive with equipment designed to detect environmental changes, such as audio recorders, EMF meters, thermal cameras, and spirit boxes. Some investigators claim to capture voices responding to questions. Others report unexplained sounds or sudden changes in temperature. But paranormal investigation rarely produces clear answers. Old buildings make noise, wind moves through structure, wood expands and contracts, and the human brain is remarkably good at turning ambiguous sounds into meaningful voices. Places like Farrar Elementary School sit somewhere between history, memory, and imagination. The children who once filled those classrooms have all grown up. Teachers who work there are remembered through the stories and photographs. But the building itself remains. When people walk through locations like Farrar today, they are not just exploring a haunted building. They are stepping into a space shaped by decades of ordinary human life. Sometimes, what we would describe as a haunting is simply the feeling of history still present in a place. And perhaps that is what draws people to locations like Farrar. Not just the possibility of ghosts, but the quiet reminder that every place holds the stories of the people who once lived within it. Before you go, don't forget to follow Beyond Haunted UK on Spotify and across social media. Every follow, every share, every message helps this community grow and keeps these stories alive. You'll find us wherever the strange and the spiritual meet. Thank you for listening.